Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
Different isn't always better, but better is always different. Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And we are so excited to be with you today to talk about a new fundamental, the fundamental of reinventing continuously. This is a big deal in a changing world. We're gonna have a chance today to talk about this idea of reinventing.
And I think it's fun. Everybody doesn't feel that way, and I don't want to project, but I think it's fun to reinvent.
I do too. I've always heard this quote. It says, "If you don't like change, you're going to like being irrelevant even less." I think that's really true. It's funny. We were one of my daughters. We have these 4 daughters. One of my daughters. She was taking a golf lesson a while back, and her first golf lesson she goes to, and she's not played very much at all. And so this old pro he actually used to be a pro. It's kind of crazy. This guy's about 80 years old now though, and he's sitting in this chair, and Hannah comes up, and he's working with her, and she hits the ball, and she's making good contact, but the ball keeps going to the right, keep going to the right. And so the guy's like, he said, let me change your grip. Let's work on your grip. That's where we start with the basics here. So let's change your grip. And he gives her a little bit of a stronger grip, try to close the club face a little more. And it's crazy. The first ball she hits, it goes right down the middle of the fairway. And she looks at him like, that's crazy. And so she hits 3 or 4 more, and they all go straight. And then she turns around and she says, "This feels weird." And she said, I really don't like it. It's like this change is kind of weird. And the guy's like, "Well, you have 2 choices. You can hold it the way you were holding it that feels good to you, or you can hold it differently and it can feel weird, but it can go straight. So you get to choose. You want it to go the right or go straight." She said, "I think I'll let it feel weird for a while. And then, at some point it starts to feel more natural." But it's so crazy how when we are faced with something that it feels so weird and we're not fluent in that, we've got to change. If we're gonna get better, we've got to do something different. We just can't rely on what we've had, for the long haul. If we're gonna live in today's world, it's huge. So yeah. I'm excited for us to talk about this a little bit as we think about it. If the leaders out there thinking, okay, I need to reinvent continuously, that sounds great. We have a little framework that we use to talk about this. Will you give them a picture of that? There's some areas of our life that we could specifically today begin to think, and we're going to unpack it next week going in and give them some ways to do this. But give them a little framework to think about it.
Yeah, well, I will say we didn't start with this, but we got the reaction early on. This was years ago. Reinvent continuously sounds big. Well, it is big. So this was our attempt to make it more manageable and make it more actionable. We said, think about 3 domains. Think about self. What can you do to reinvent yourself? Systems, which is really about the work processes, right? You say this all the time. Your current beliefs, behaviors, processes, and systems are perfectly aligned.
And your habits.
Are perfectly aligned to give you the outcomes that you're now receiving. So if you want a different outcome, you need to go upstream and make some adjustment to the system.
I'll make it country boy. You're getting what you're getting because you're doing what you're doing, right? I mean, it's so true. It's right. It's huge. We've got to have this. So I think it does start with ourselves. That's really great.
That's that second domain. And let me just say this, and I've been guilty of this myself, but it's become a hot button for me. When I talk to leaders about some area that needs improvement, whether it's personally, organizationally, on your team, and I say, well, what are you going to do? Well, if the first thing they say is, "I hope," then I'm not betting on them. And I'm probably not even listening to what they're going to say next. Because hope is a good thing, but hope is not a strategy. What are you going to do? And so to me, that easily fits in this concept of systems.
Yeah.
And then third and finally is structure. Structure should enable, not inhibit the work. And I'm not saying every problem is a structural problem, but many times when you're over budget or you're don't honor your schedule or things are falling through the crack or you're making errors, sometimes I think you need to look and see if in fact structure might be the culprit.
Well, I think sometimes we have companies we talk to, we work with these companies and I've seen companies before think restructuring. We hear that word all the time. Companies think restructuring is a bad thing. We've got to restructure. It actually is a huge opportunity. It's what you're saying. It actually it enables us to do.
Should
what we're
make
trying
it
to do.
easier
really
to do
should.
the work.
And so it is. Maybe some of us, as we're listening, it's an opportunity right now for you to restructure things, because the reality is you may not be able to get where you want to go if you continue to do things the way you've done. I mean, it's your current results as an organization, not just as an individual.
Sure.
They're tied up in the way you've got things structured right now. Your structure really is designed to give you your current results. So if you want something bigger, you're going to have to do something different to get there. Or structure maybe be a part of that.
Unfortunately, the term restructuring has been hijacked, and it now usually means, what do we do after layoffs?
Yeah.
And so that's not what we're talking about.
That's right.
We're talking about how do you optimize the people to enable the work to happen as seamlessly and as friction-free as possible.
That's right.
And you need the right people in the right role. One more thing about reinventing structure. Again, you've heard me reference over the last few months Peter Drucker from time to time. If you don't know who he was, I think, the preeminent thought leader in the field of leadership and management, maybe the top thinker over the last couple thousand years. And years and years and years ago, he said that for every 35% of growth, you need a fundamentally different structure. Now, it might be the only thing I've heard him say that I wouldn't necessarily agree with completely. I think the spirit of it is on point, because I think a lot of things matter. Context, the size of the organization, and so forth and so on. But if your organization has doubled in size, I'm probably betting if you haven't changed the structure, you have sub-optimized structure. I mean, there are organizations who will go years and years and years without restructuring. And I think you're missing an opportunity. Drucker said, you build the structure to enable the current and near-term work. You don't build it for double and triple the size. So if you want to double, triple the size, your structure has to keep pace.
Yeah. I love to ask myself, can we get there with the team we have? And if the answer is no, you got to have a different way to think, and maybe you can reorganize.
Yeah, not even.
But
Yes.
maybe you need more people.
I mean, that's a great question, but I'm saying, do you need other team members? Do you need different roles?
Right.
So there's a lot in there.
A lot there to unpack and for people to think about. But if you're going to reinvent continuously, these three areas to reinvent yourself, to reinvent your systems. We didn't say really a lot about systems, but we always talk about they make excellence repeatable. They really are. And maybe they're a gap area for some, and then for others, maybe it is that restructure piece that gives them an opportunity to really build, and have a growth mindset. I mean, it might not be a scale mindset, but if you're gonna scale, you got to at least go down that growth road first. You got to.
A quick word of caution on the structure piece. It's probably the only thing we'll talk about over the 6 weeks we're discussing this book that many leaders do not directly control.
Yeah.
But you can influence it.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't abdicate your responsibility or your leadership. If you have a structural problem, then you need to try and influence those decision makers to help you fix that. But I want to acknowledge the fact there are a lot of leaders that do not control structure, but don't keep silent, because sometimes that is the fundamental problem.
Yeah, that's great. So it's Super Bowl week coming up here. We got a lot of people thinking about blocking and tackling. They're the fundamentals of football. We got the fundamentals of leadership here that we've been talking about with you, to see the future, to engage and develop others. And now today we start down this road of reinventing continuously. In a changing world, it's important that we continue to think differently. If we're going to get better, it's going to require different. Different might not be better, but better will be different. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. We're going to talk about the way we think differently tomorrow, or how to think different. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. I hope you'll join us for that. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.